What is up, everybody, and welcome to another part to my set review of Duskmourn. We are to the final standard color, which is green. So far, we've covered white, we covered blue, we covered black, we covered red, and now we are doing green. So if you saw the other videos, that was kind of the order that we've done them in, so they kind of build on each other a little bit. This is my first set review that I've ever done, but this is also the first time I have become truly a student of the game. If you follow me along the way, I am currently pursuing a spot in the Pro Tour. I have set a 5-year goal for myself to try to qualify for the Pro Tour, so I am learning. I am doing everything I can to study the game, become a student of the game, practice, play tournaments, do bronze to mythic runs and draft to build out that skill set. So I figured, what a better way to learn the set than to do a set review, look at every single card. So today we're going to look at the green commons, uncommons, rares, and mythic. We're going to talk about whether or not they're going to be a good draft or limited format, according to my opinion. I'm going to take it or leave it with however you choose. And we'll also talk if we're going to see them in constructed, if we're going to see them in commander. And then overall, we're going to talk about this really cool theme. I'm a big fan of 80s horror films. We keep running into some of our own personal fears. We talk about those along the way. So if we run into one of your fears while doing the set review, drop it in the comment, put a timestamp. I'd love to hear more about that. We're telling stories along the way too. So hopefully we're finding this entertaining as well as educational around the cards in the new Duskmourn set. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to switch on over here at our screen, and we're going to take a look. Let me get comfortable here. Okay. We got fix the chair. Okay, we're locked in. We're going to start with common, and these are all oriented in increasing CMC value. So we're going to go through the commons, then the uncommons, then the rares, then the mythics, and we're going to talk about them along the way. So first up is Flesh Burrower for 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green, 2/2. It's a creature, insect, death touch, and whenever Flesh Burrow attacks another target creature you control, gains death touch until end of turn. Massive value. 2 mana, 2/2. Plus it has death touch, and it gives something else death touch. I would definitely draft this card. We've talked about this in some of the other videos. So if you're just swooping into the green one, this would be the first time we're chatting about it. Is that my general impression so far is that Bloomburrow was focused on 1 and 2 drops. I think everything shifted 1 CMC. So your new staple cards are going to be 2 and 3 drops. So I think this being a 2-drop with death touch, 2/2, it's definitely above average value. Give it like a B+, and would definitely be drafting it. Are we going to see it in constructed? Maybe. It's an all-around strong card. It's not a super extreme in one way or the other. It might fit into a Golgari deck in some ways with death touch. So we could see it in some constructed play, but we're definitely going to be targeting it in a draft. So let's move on to the next one here. Next one we have is Horrid Vigor. The art's kind of cool. This got this axe shoved into his chest and a sword over here. But it's a 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green, instant. Target creature gains death touch and indestructible until the end of turn. It's a fun combat trick. I would probably draft it as a removal or a combat trick. One of my strategies for drafting is I'd like to have 2 or 3 spot removals and then 2 or 3 combat tricks. And in addition to whatever I'm trying to do. So whatever my game plan is for the deck I'm building. So this would be a combat trick if I was in green that I would potentially take. So attack with it, somebody blocks it, make it have death touch and indestructible, so it's for sure going to kill that. So if they throw like a 6/6 body in front of a 2/2, all of a sudden it's killing it, right? It's a nice little combat trick for us here. So I would draft it. Are we going to see it in constructed? Probably not. Same thing with Commander. Next is Manifest Dread, just straight up Manifest Dread. So this is the first time we're seeing it in the green deck. So this is a 2 mana sorcery. So 1 colorless, 1 green. It just manifests dread. And for us hanging out here, first time we're going to talk about it, what does manifest dread do? It allows you to look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and the other into your graveyard. Turn it face up anytime for its mana value or mana cost if it's a creature card. So it's a 2/2 for 2 and allows you to manifest dread. So if you're doing a manifest dread deck, then this obviously fits really well. But it's a 2/2 for 2, allows you to see 2 cards and potentially snag one and put it down on the board. So overall, I'd probably draft it just because it's on curve. It gives me a 2/2 body and allows me to see some cards. So I would say it's slightly over average value. Are we going to see it in constructed? Maybe. I think some people might be able to put together some really interesting manifest dread decks. So this would fit in those scenarios. Next up is Monstrous Emergence. It's a 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, choose a creature you control or reveal a creature card from your hand. So as an additional cost to cast this spell, choose a creature card you control or reveal a creature card from your hand. Monstrous Emergence deals damage equal to the power of the creature you chose or the card you revealed to target creature. This could be big. So say you have a 7/7, I don't know, in your hand. This is a 2 mana for 7 damage. This is a snatch. I would say definitely snag this as a removal card in draft. I would consider it a removal card, especially if you feather in a couple big creatures, have them in hand. If not, you're still doing 2 or 3 damage for 2. At sorcery speed, it would be a little bit better if it was at instant speed, but the fact that it could do 7-8 damage, are we going to see that in constructed potentially because of how much damage it could do? Absolutely. But it is only to target creature to balance it out a little bit too. I think we're going to see it in constructed. We could potentially see it in commander as well because you always have some big creatures in commander. But I would snag it in draft or limited formats. Next up is Say Its Name. Oh, what was this? What was this movie? Was it Candyman? Yeah. I'm not going to say it any more times than that because you got to say his name like 3 or 7 times or something into a mirror, and then he appears. Yeah, that creeps me out. That scared me. I played around with that idea when I was a kid. I saw that movie, and I looked in the mirror, and I said it, and then I was like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. It scared me too much. But yeah, that was that's an interesting movie. I love the trope here. But Say Its Name is a 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green. Mill 3 cards, and then you may return a creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. So it doesn't have to be of the ones milled. It could be any in your graveyard. Exile this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard. Search your graveyard, hand, and or library for a card named Altonic, the Thrice Called, and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle, activate only as a search rate. So this whole synergy where it's actually going after a specific card, definitely going to work in constructed. I'll see if it plays out. We can actually see what this card is called. It's an uncommon, so we can take a look at it when we move over to the uncommons. But that is what is it? And put it onto the battlefield. So you actually get to put it onto the battlefield. So if you have 3 of these in your graveyard, this card and 2 other cards named Say Its Name from your graveyard. So if you can get 3 of these into your graveyard, you can then exile them and then search your graveyard, hand, or library for a card named this and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. So that's a way to take this and put a 9/9 on there. Are you going to get that in draft reliably? No, you're not going to get 3 copies of Say Its Name and put it onto the battlefield. So definitely going to see it in constructed, not going to see it in limited, and obviously can't see it in commander because you can only have 1. So that's that. Moving on to Wary Watchdog, 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green. It's a 3/1 creature dog, and then when it enters or dies, surveil 1. 2 mana for a 3/1 body, so it just, it punches over its weight class. It's going to take out a 3/3, a 4/3, 5/3, something like that. Having it on the board, a 3/1 is always nice. It's big body. You got to take care of it. If somebody doesn't block it and kill their own card, it's swinging through and doing 3 damage to your life total. So definitely a draftable card. I would say, are we going to see it in constructed? Probably not. Next up is Cryptid Inspector, 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green. It is a 2/3 creature elf warrior. It has vigilance, so I would say it's slightly above average value. And whenever a face-down permanent you control enters, and whenever Cryptid Inspector or another permanent you control is turned face up, put a 1/1 counter on Cryptid Inspector. So this is going to work really well for Manifest Dread. So if you're Manifest Dread and turn a card face up, this is going to get 1/1 on it. So if you are building a Manifest draft deck or limited deck, this may work. Is it going to work a lot better in a constructed format? Absolutely. So I think we'll see it in a Manifest Dread constructed format, and then potentially a draft. If you can get a handful of Manifest Dread cards, it would synergize well with this. If you can't, it is an average value card. Maybe be worth drafting as a 2/3 vigilance, but it's not above value in any way. So you may or may not see it as just a standard value card. Frantic Strength is a 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green enchantment aura. Has flash, which I'm always a big fan of. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. So nice little combat trick. It's a little expensive, but it does have flash, so you can flash it in, give something 2/2 and trample. So you can definitely kill something in an exchange for that's already been blocked. It is an enchantment, so it can help with some of these enchantment decks that we might see. So overall, I would say slightly above average and a potential combat trick to draft. Grasping Longneck is up next, and this is a 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green, 4/2. So I would say average, the average CMC to power and toughness, but it has reach and is a 4 damage. So now it's punching way above its weight class, taking out 4 4s, 5 4s, 6 4s. Those big flyers, 3 4s that we might see up in the air. It's able to snag those out. Obviously, it's going to die, but it's going to be able to grab them. And then whenever it does die, you gain 2 life. So I would say above average, a solid B plus card. Definitely something I would draft. I would snag this to protect myself from things in the air. Now, this is absolutely creepy. Who is this guy? Dave Kendall? Dude, what are you drawing, man? I'm freaked out. It's like centipede's got its feet in its back and got this weird hand tail that's touching him. It's like eating him. I don't know what it's doing. It's even got tentacles coming out of its skull-shaped eyes. I don't know. This whole picture got me grossed out, weirded out in all the best ways. Great job, Dave Kendall. You freaked me out. Spine Seeker Centipede, 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green for 2/1. And when Spine Seeker Centipede enters, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. It also has Delirium. I believe this is the first time that we've run into Delirium in the green set. So let's explain what Delirium is. It's as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, then it gets an extra thing. And so in this particular case, Spine Seeker Centipede gets +1/+2 and has Vigilance. So it becomes a 3/3 for 3 with Vigilance if you have Delirium. So if you're building a Delirium deck, and it gives you a land card. So if you're building a Delirium draft or limited, this would definitely fit in there. I would say it's a high value card. It allows you to get another land and comes out as a 3/3 with Vigilance. Bonus points for creepy art. So definitely draftable. If you're constructing a Delirium deck with green, this is definitely a playable card as well. I have kind of figured out that getting Delirium is going to be a lot easier in draft than I originally thought it was going to be, because we see a lot of enchantments. And then we obviously already have creatures, instants, and sorceries. So there's your 4. And then we see a lot of double cards as well. So there are enchantment creatures or artifact creatures that can help add 2 types automatically to your graveyard. So I wouldn't steer away from Delirium is what I'm getting at for draft. So green is definitely going to have a lot of centipedes, eh? That's going to creep me out the whole time. Anthropede is a 4 CMC, 3 colorless, 1 green, 3/4 with reach. And when Anthropede enters, you may discard a card or pay 2. When you do, destroy target room. So it gives you a way to destroy a room. So if you're going up against somebody that has a room deck, this is definitely valuable as an extra ability. And you can do it by discarding a card instead of paying the 2. So you can do it on turn 4. And then it is a 3/4 with reach. So it's got a little bit of a booty on it. So it can protect you from things in the air. I would say slightly above average card, probably like a B- card. So I would say draftable, maybe like a 1 of. Again, so what we're kind of seeing is that shift of 1 CMC. So I think 2 and 3 drops are going to be the core of your build in limited. And then 4 and 5 drops are going to be synergistic cards that are going to support those 2 and 3s. And then you have your game enders in like the 5 through 7. So this is a synergistic card. And so does it have a lot of synergy? No. In a vacuum, I think it's slightly above average value. So you might want to save the 4 slot. I'm going to take back what I said a little bit earlier. You might want to save the 4 slot for this. Yeah, maybe save the 4 slot. Next up is Cautious Survivor. 4 CMC, 3 colorless, 1 green. We're strongly in the Ghostbusters sort of theme here. And this is a 4/4. So right off the bat, it's got average value, 4/4 for 4. And then it has survival. First time we're seeing survival in green. And to explain what survival is basically at the beginning of your second main phase, if Cautious Survivor is tapped, you gain 2 life. So every time you attack with it and it survives, you gain 2 life, or you tap it. So there are cards that can just tap your own cards, and that might be another way to trigger survival. Would we draft it? Yeah, it's a decent 4-drop. You gain some life. It's not super synergistic, but it is. If there's nothing better and you need a 4-drop, I would snag it. Bashful Beastie, and by better what I mean is if there's not another card in the pack that fits your strategy, then the next thing I would look at are like what are good bodies to have on the board, and this would be a good body to have on the board. Next up is Bashful Beastie. It's a 5 CMC, 4 colorless, 1 green, 5/4. When Bashful Beastie dies, manifest dread. So it's essentially a 7/6 for 5. If you're in a manifest dread, I would definitely take it because it's going to synergize well with that. Am I going to take it on the value alone? Again, if I'm looking at a pack and it's not fitting my strategy in the 2 or 3 drops, and I'm not seeing a 4 or 5 synergistic drop in that pack, then I would take this as a body. It's a good body. Slavering Branch Snapper. Oh, it's just a fun art. I like the art on this one. Is a 6 CMC, 4 colorless, 2 green, 7/6. So already outsized value. Then you add Trample, more outsized value, and now it has Force Cycling. So I think some other folks have said this, and I'm repeating it, is that some of these cards are going to fit really well in more of the older formats. So your Legacy or Vintage. You might even see it in Modern. I've seen a lot of these Forest Cycle, Island Cycle type cards that would work well in like a Living Dead or Living End type deck, where they're just big cards that you can cycle for cheap into your graveyard and then hope to break them out later. So anything that can bring things out of the graveyard, these are great to get these expensive cards into the graveyard and then finding a way to pull them out. we ran into our first room in green. So if you have not caught any of the series, you don't know what's going on in Duskmourn. What is a room? So a room is a two-sided card, and you may cast either half. That door unlocks on the battlefield as a sorcery. You may pay the mana cost of a locked door to unlock it. So essentially the way to think about it is you have two cards in one. Both of the doors are locked, and then you can pay either side. So I can pay the Moldering Gym side, or I can pay the Weight Room side to play the card onto the field, and then at any time I can unlock the other side as I see fit. So we'll talk first about the Moldering Gym side. It's a 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green. It's when you unlock this door, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And then on the Weight Room side, we have 6 CMC, 5 colorless, 1 green. When you unlock this door, Manifest Dread, then put 3 1/1 counters on that creature. So essentially, paying 6 CMC for a 5/5 in a Manifest Dread. So it's in a weird spot. I've been saying anything in that 1 to 3 CMC range for a room is a decent range to consider for an enchantment deck, because it's cheap enough to get it on there just to give you an enchantment count. And then there's a plenty of cards that will help you like unlock a room for cheaper than its CMC cost, because it would just like enters battlefield, unlock a room, those type of cards, right? But if you can never play that other side, at least you have a cheaper room to get down on the board, and it's a dead card for sacrifice material. So there are cards out there that say sacrifice a creature or enchantment, and this would be one maybe that you could sacrifice this card. If you don't need it anymore, you already got the ETB from the Moldering Gym side, and you're never going to unlock the Weight Room side, then that's something to consider. Awesome, and that will complete the commons for green. So what's up next is, of course, the uncommons. We got 15 more of these to get through, and so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hey, thanks to Mohit Sika for the subscribe on the YouTube channel. I appreciate you if you're catching the stream. And if you are enjoying the stream or on either YouTube or Twitch, feel free to follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, all of those, much appreciated. But let's go ahead and continue on here. We got some more cards to get through. Is Coordinated Clobbering for 1 CMC, so 1 green, is a sorcery. Tap 1 or 2 target untapped creatures you control. They each deal damage equal to their power to target creature and opponent controls. If you have any survival cards, so like green-white, there's a lot of survival cards over in white. This is huge. I can tap the cards for free and get stuff. So there's one way that you get to choose different counters, where it was an experience or veteran survivalist or something like that, where if it survives once, you can do, well, anytime it survives, you can do like a 1/1 counter, a flying counter, and then like a vigilance counter. And so if you can just for free tap the card without actually having to attack it, like you can like give it 1/1 and then give it flying and then give it vigilance, right? So being able to tap your own cards, if you are in sort of a survival deck, this is huge. But then also it's removal. So I would definitely be snagging this in limited formats. Are you going to see it in constructed? Potentially. If maybe you make a survivalist deck or something like that, you could see it, or maybe you make a themed commander deck, you could see it there as well. Next up, another 1 CMC for 1 green is a 1/2 creature fungus. You have pay 2 colorless, sacrificing insidious fungus, choose 1. You can destroy target artifact, destroy target creature, or draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So a 1/2 for 1 is good value just by itself, and then it has later value of giving you either card draw or destroying artifact or an enchantment. So overall, I think this is an above average value card, and definitely something I would snag at the very least for a body that's on curve. Next up is the Patchwork Beastie. The only thing I can think of this is like the Patchwork Banner in Bloomburrow. I wonder if this is some like mutation of that. I'll have to go back and look at the art for Patchwork Beastie, or for Patchwork Banner, and see if there's any crossovers. But this is an artifact creature, 3/3 for one, which is interesting, but like what's the caveat here? And it has Delirium. So Patchwork Beastie can't attack or block unless there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So you have to have Delirium in order for this to do anything. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill a card. So even if it's just out there as a without the ability to attack or block, you can mill a card. So it does give you the ability. So if you're thinking a black-green deck, to just put a card into your graveyard and then later pull a card out. So those graveyard recursion decks, this could play well in constructed format. If you can manage to pull off graveyard recursion in a limited format, then this would also work there. If you're in a Delirium deck, then that's another big strategy that you could use, is getting this on the board essentially as a 1 CMC for 3/3. Oh, and the other thing, it's an artifact creature. So that's going to help with Delirium count as well. So we talked about some enchantment creatures. Now we have artifact creatures. So those double ups help you get to Delirium faster. Next up for 2 CMC, we have 1 colorless, 1 green, Cathartic Parting. I like the art. It looks like Master Splinter with Cortana. But I think that's Tameo, if I'm being honest. But sorcery, it's the owner of target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls shuffles it into their library. You may shuffle up to 4 target cards from your graveyard into your library. This would definitely be good in constructed if you have a game plan. I think it would be hard to pull off in limited. It is technically a removal card for an enchantment. We are going to see a lot of enchantments in this limited format. But is it important for it to be enchantment only? Because there's plenty of other cards that are creature or enchantment removals, and I think those are a little bit more important to snag. But there is probably an opportunity to play this in constructed. House Cartographer. This one's kind of interesting. So he's mapping the house and all like the secret portals and all that stuff. So this is a 2 CMC, 1 green, 1 colorless, 2/2. So off the bat, great, just average value. It's a creature, human, scout, survivor. And then it has survival at the beginning of your second main phase. If House Cartographer is tapped, reveal cards from the top of your library. So you reveal a land card, put that card into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it does give you land draw for a 2/2 if it's tapped. So I think it's a good body with some extra value. You might see somebody draft it if they need a good 2-drop with some extra abilities. And maybe they have some cards like blue-green. Really gives you some ability to like tap cards without having to attack with them, thus triggering survival. So something to be on the lookout for. But you're going to want some sort of synergy to make this happen. And again, if you're doing like a survival constructed deck, obviously that would make sense. So next up is Overgrown Zealot. Is 2 CMC for 0/4, and it's a mana dork. You can tap, add 1 mana of any color, or you can tap, add 2 mana of 1 color. Then this mana only to turn permanents face up. So it will only work with Manifest Dread, but it is worth 2. It's a 0/4 body to put on the board, and it's a mana dork. So it's okay. Like I said, there's this is what we're seeing in this format, is that sort of shift from like 1 to 2 drops to 2 to 3 drops. So for a 2-drop mana dork, I think that's pretty standard for this deck, and something to snag. Give you an 0/4 body for blocking plus a mana dork. So I would draft it for sure. Are we going to see it in constructed? Maybe in a Manifest Dread deck if you need some extra value, but I think there's other synergies that you would probably want to work for. Gotta love this. This is the old The Shining reference. Here's Johnny. Break down the door. 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green, instant, choose 1, exile target artifact, exile target enchantment, or Manifest Dread. Again, obviously going to work well in a Manifest Dread deck, giving you a 2/2 for 3 plus a Manifest Dread trigger if you need it. Gives you some removal. So it's a nice smoothing card. Am I going to draft it? maybe in a Manifest Dread deck. I think there's enough synergy with Manifest Dread that you could snag it. It's going to be a little bit more on the expensive side than I would want for the 3-drop. We really want the 2 and 3 drops to be core to our build. With the for the 4 and 5 drops to be more synergistic. So I would like to see this actually be like a 4-drop, but do more, like choose 2 of these. And then I think it would work really well. And then worth taking 1 in the limited format. Next up is Defiant Survivor. I like the art style. This is just fun, whatever's going on. We got the bat with spikes and the axe going on. Yeah, I just like the art on this one. So the Defiant Survivor is a 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green, 3/2 creature, human, survivor. And survival at the beginning of your second main phase if Defiant Survivor is tapped, Manifest Dread. So this one is a card generator. If you have ways to tap cards, so green, blue, I think is a good one to tap cards. Then doing this without attacking, and then you're just manifesting dread, making 2/2s, and putting desired cards under there. So this could be a really good one. It's a 3/2 body. So this is, I think this is definitely something you're going to see in limited, especially if you have a Manifest Dread deck in any ways, or a token deck where you're buffing tokens or things that have power 2 or less. There's a lot of synergies with those type of creatures. So this is definitely one that would snag if you have synergies in a bubble. I think it's slightly above average. Are you going to see it in constructed decks? Potentially. Any Manifest Dread decks. Next up, Fear of Exposure. 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green, 5/4. Off the bat, like, wow. Okay, cool. As an additional cost to cast this spell, tap 2 untapped creatures and or lands your control. What did I just tell you? Your survival cards, right? You pay 3. I get free 2 taps. So I could tap this and another card and trigger survival and a 5/4. So this is huge value on any survival card. For 3 mana to be able to tap 2 of your own cards, like, it seems like a cost, but then it just works perfectly into survival mechanism. And then it's a trample 5/4. Like, great. I would snag it if you have a survival deck. Like, 3 mana 5/4, huge value. I think this is a really good card. Under the Skin, and you definitely see it in a constructed survival deck as well. Under the Skin, 3 CMC. Sorcery, it's just a Manifest Dread, and then you may return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's giving you a card out of your graveyard back into your hand and giving you a 2/2 creature. I think that is outsized value for sure. So it's worth a draft. It's probably like a one of for sure, especially if you're looking for graveyard recursion or just extra survivability. So what I mean by survivability is, like, the game's going long, you need cards to play, pulling them out of the graveyard to be able to play them. So overall, I think a good card, especially for a one-of in the limited format. Are we going to see it in constructed? Potentially in a Manifest Dread deck is a way to Manifest Dread and pull cards out of the graveyard. Because you're going to remember, if you Manifest Dread, you are looking at 2 cards, putting 1 in the graveyard and then 1 face down on the battlefield. So being able to pull those cards back out of the graveyard is a really nice ability to have. So I definitely think we're going to see it in Manifest Dread constructed decks. And then obviously if you build something Manifest Dread commander deck, that should be in there. Threats around every corner. So 4 CMC, 3 colorless, 1 green enchantment. When threats are around every corner, enters Manifest Dread. So we get to make another 2/2. And then whenever a face down permanent you control enters, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. That's really strong. I think that's a really good card. Definitely in a Manifest Dread constructed deck, in a themed commander deck. Am I going to draft it, though? Am I going to use it in limited in any way? If you do a Manifest Dread theme deck, this could be powerful for you. So this would be a one-of. It's in the 4 slot. It's a synergistic card, in my opinion. Yeah, I would draft it as a synergistic card is sort of a one of. Wicker Folk Thresher, 4 CMC, 3 colorless, 1 green, 5/4. So already got value there. And it has Delirium. So whenever Wicker Folk Thresher attacks, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put the card on the battlefield, put it into your hand. So it's essentially giving you card draw or land to play. And it's an artifact creature as well. So it's going to help with Delirium if it dies, and it's a 5/4. I would draft this, especially if I'm focusing on Delirium. I would draft this for sure. 4 mana, 5/4. It's good value for the card. It's going to synergize well with the Delirium deck and fits well in that, I think, that 4 slot for us. I always kind of really like things that punch above their weight class too. So it's going to take a 5/5, a 6/5, or it's easily going to block anything in a lot of the 1 to 3 slots, right? 1 CMC to 3 CMC slots, because most of those are going to be 1/1s, 2/2s, or 3/3s. Easily going to be able to block those. So overall, it's a good body and adds some synergy. Plus an artifact creature, so happen add types to your graveyard. Next up is the Rootwise Survivor. 5 CMC, 3/4, has haste. Not so great so far. It's under average value. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Rootwise Survivor is tapped, put 3/1/1 counters on up to 1 target land you control. That land becomes a 0/0 elemental creature in addition to its other types. It gains haste until end of turn. This is pretty good. If you're building a survival deck, you're essentially, for 5 mana, generating a 6/7 worth of value. So way over value. Plus this has haste. If you're able to tap this without attacking, plus it, so that's the thing about haste, is if there's a gap, they're all tapped out, you can swing this for free, do the 3 damage, and then take advantage of this survival. And then if you manage to swing this twice, this is huge value. For sure. So would I take it? So it's in the 5 slot. This is definitely a one of. In that 4 and 5 slot, we're looking for synergy cards. This synergizes really well with survival, so obviously we're going to take it. Plus, it can be a big body and generates a lot of threat on the board. So I would take it as a one of. Am I going to see it in constructed? Maybe. I think it's a little too expensive for constructed, but we'll see. So we saw this card earlier when we were looking at Say Its Name. We determined this could be really good in constructed, but it's going to be a little too difficult to get this combo off in limited formats, because essentially what you need to have is 3 of these in your graveyard. And it's going to be really hard, 1, to get 3 of these, and 2, to get them all in your graveyard. And then finally pull, and then also have this card somewhere to be able to pull it, right? So limited, it's going to be too hard. Constructed, I think you can do some fun stuff. So what is it pulling? This is Altenac the Thrice Called. It's a 7 CMC, 5 colorless, 2 green, legendary creature, insect beast. It has trample. It's a 9/9. And then whenever Altenac the Thrice Called becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, draw a card. Whenever Altenac, so if an opponent targets Altenac, I get to draw a card. And then I can pay 1 colorless, 1 green, discard Altenac the Thrice Called, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it's just a big body. You're really trying to do the Say Its Name thing to get it out there as a 9/9 with trample. It does some other stuff that's okay. So overall, I would say this card is pretty, it's above average because it's a 7 mana 9/9 with trample. So by itself, it's it's a B+ card. It's just not going to be something you're really going to do in limited. It's really something more for constructed. All right, and we got to our last card in uncommon, which is a room card. It's at the edge of a useful cost for just an enchantment deck. with the greenhouse side of this card being a 3 CMC. In lands you control, have tap, add 1 mana of any color. So you're basically turning your lands into any color. You got 5 color access now. It doesn't mean every card is every color. It just can be tapped for any color. And then on the other side, we have Rickety Gazebo. It's a 4 CMC. When you unlock this door, mill 4 cards, then return up to 2 permanent cards from among them to your hand. Okay, kind of expensive. If you have a sort of a mill strategy or a graveyard recursion strategy, this will fit well into that. Like I said, the greenhouse side is on that border of useful cost enchantments from 1 CMC to 3 CMC. Become cards that you can just use as a body count, something to sacrifice, something to add to your enchantment count for some synergies there. So all something to think about. It's on the higher end for cost, but may work well in an enchantment limited solution. Don't think we're going to see it too much in constructed or in commander. All right, we are on to the 8 rares that we're going to find in green. First up is a 3 CMC Volgavas Onslaught. Pay X, pay 1 green, sorcery. And you can manifest dread X time, then put X 1/1 counters on each of those creatures. So this would probably be most reasonably played as a... I mean, if you paid it as a 3, so 1x, and then 1 green, it's going to come out as a 3/3. You're going to just have a 3/3 manifest dread. Otherwise, if you can manage to pump this up to 2/2, now you're coming out with a 5. You're coming out with 2/4. Yeah, 2/4/4 creatures. Wow, math is hard. So that becomes really good. So if you have a Manifest Dread deck, this is definitely a great snag. At rare, I would definitely draft this. This is a one of for sure. Maybe if I get it twice, sure, I would take it. Because at 5 mana, I'm generating 2 4/4s. So that's pretty nice. And then so yeah, I would say punching above its weight there. Probably a B+, A-. Are we going to see it in other Manifest Dread decks? Absolutely. I think this is going to be an all-around good deck, and that would even fit into a commander deck. Next up is Twitching Doll. Yeah, that's sufficiently creepy. You know, there's like bugs for eyes. There's definitely bugs all over it, and then there's like spiders. I don't like how up in there the spiders are. Yep, I'm officially creeped out. Oh, it's a spider toy even. Okay. Twitching Doll is a 2 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green, 2/2 artifact creature. And it's add 1 mana of any color, put a nest counter on Twitching Doll. I can tap it and sacrifice Twitching Doll, create a 2/2 green spider creature token with reach for each counter on Twitching Doll. Activate only as a sorcery. This is really good. So you're 2/2 for 2 mana dork, and then every time you use it as a mana dork, you put a counter on it, and then you can sacrifice this thing and create 2/2 green spider creature tokens for every counter that you put on it. I think we can only activate that as a sorcery, but still, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Would I... let's look at the spider token. Yeah, that's officially weird. Why does it have eyes? Why? What's with the big eyes on its back? I don't... It's grossing me out. Like I don't actually have a problem with spiders. Like I think spiders are pretty harmonious for nature. They kill a lot of nuisance bugs. You know, they keep the other critters out, and you're just hanging out with a house spider that's harmless, right? Unless you live in the South, then they're creepy and poisonous. So are they poisonous? Yeah, they'd be poisonous, not venomous. And when they're big enough that you can hear them move, it's a problem. Like I don't know. Can you hear that? like that. We hear him scurry. Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, I'm out. I was at a basement one time, had a bunch of wolf spiders, and it would scurry across the linoleum, or not the linoleum, but like the vinyl wood planks, and you could hear them just like just take off running. Yeah, that was the only time, and that's like our heaviest spider that we have where I live. But in the South American, like south of North America, you get the bigger spiders. Creeps me out. This card really good. Snatch Draft in limited, and it's a creature artifact, so it's helping with delirium. Definitely, I think you're going to see it in constructed as well. This is a good one for going wide, creating tokens, doing all the things. So that was my story about spiders and being freaked out. Next up is we have Enduring Vitality. 3 CMC, 1 colorless, 2 green for 3/3. Already great value. Plus it has Vigilance, more great value. So we're up to that B minus B territory. Creatures you control have one tap and add 1 mana of any color. So it makes everything a mana dork even better. And then when Enduring Vitality dies, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's an enchantment. So when it dies, becomes an enchantment and still gives all of your creatures the ability. Definitely an easy grab in draft. It's just going to give you access to more mana, and you can never really be upset about that. Are you going to see it in constructed? Potentially. We could potentially see some things. Some other things to note, it is an enchantment creature, so it helps with delirium. It's also a glimmer. There's been some cards that like can't be blocked by anything unless it has glimmer, or it's a glimmer creature. So that's another thing to keep in mind here. So overall, I would definitely draft it just for value alone. It's going to fit in a lot of green decks. Next up is Omnivorous Flytrap. 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green, 2/4. So, okay, average so far. It has Delirium, so whenever Omnivorous Flytrap enters or attacks, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, distribute 2 1/1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. So you can just dole out 1/1 counters whenever this enters or attacks. So when it enters, it's just, and you have Delirium, it's actually worth more like a 4/6. So huge value there. And then if there are 6 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, double the number of 1/1 counters on those. So 6 types, what would those be? Creatures, enchantments, artifacts, sorcery, instant, lands? Maybe. I mean, you might be able to do that in draft. I don't think you're going to get that in limited formats. It definitely could potentially work in like a Delirium constructed deck, but this is a good value card. I would definitely snag it. Just being able to dole out 1/1 counters on a 3-drop is pretty nice. Next up is Head Shredder. Why does everything got to be a spider? Right? It looks like a spider. It's a 4 CMC, 2 colorless, 2 green, artifact vehicle, 5/5. Whenever Head Shredder attacks, you may mill 2 card. Whenever 1 or more land cards are put into your graveyard from library, put them onto the battlefield tapped. So I can just mill cards and then put land cards in there. Decent value. It's a crew 1, so really easy to crew. 5/5 for 4 and gives you, it's a good value card. I wouldn't say it's as good as some of the other ones we saw. Definitely like a solid B. If I didn't have a better 4-drop position, I would probably take it. But vehicles are okay. In limited, like it would obviously work in like a vehicle constructed deck. Anything that you can crew for 1, especially at a 5/5, is pretty nice. Next up is we have Kona the Rescue Beastie. Is a 4 CMC, 3 colorless, 1 green, 4/3. So good value right off the bat, and has survival. So at the beginning of your second main, if Kona Rescue Beastie is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. That's insane. That's huge value. So if you have a big old honker in your hand, you can just put it down. Put it down on the battlefield. Yeah, that's good value, especially if you have some big cards in your hand. I could definitely see this being nice in some older formats. You could potentially make it work in Constructed. It is a legendary creature, so you can only have one of it on the battlefield at a time, but that ability to potentially drop a big guy is great for synergy. So if there's a synergy play, I would definitely snag it in limited. If there's not a synergy play, I think it would be kind of hard. Oh, I read that wrong. I read that as 3 CMC. This is 4 CMC, so the value is a little low. I don't think I would snag it if I didn't already have some big bodies like in my hand for some reason, or know that a big body is going to table, so I can grab it and start using it with this card. Next up is we have the Leyline of Mutation. So this is green's Leyline. It's a 4 CMC, 2 colorless, 2 green. And as is true with all Leylines, if it is in your opening hand, you may put it into the game, or you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. You may pay 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 green, and 1 red. I said that out of order. Rather than pay the mana cost for spells that you cast. Weird. There's probably some synergy there to make it cheaper. So there's already some cards that like say, hey, your lands will tap for any color. So I guess if you have a big expensive card, now you can just pay 1 of each color to cast it instead of paying the 6+ mana to cast a card, thus making it cheaper. This also just says spells. So maybe you have a big room that you want to unlock and you have the ability to get 1 of each mana. You could potentially just unlock or cast the unlock side of a big room for 1 of each color. So this definitely has play in Constructed. I don't think it's going to have much play in limited formats. Next up, and finally, for the rares in green, we have 5 CMC for a 5/5. So decent value already. This spell can't be countered. Awesome. Trample and haste. So huge value on this card. I would definitely snag this in limited, just off of this stuff alone, in a limited format in the 5 slot. It also has a Delirium. I can pay 2 colorless and 2 green. Return Balustrade Worm from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Activate if there are 4 or more card types from cards in your graveyard and only as a sorcery. So it does have a finality counter on it, meaning if you're not familiar with finality counter, means if it dies again, it's exiled. So that's what that means. So you can recur this back for a cheaper cost. So I could pay 5. It's already pretty sweet. And then if it dies, pay 4 and bring it back again. So that is a definite grab in the 5 slot for the limited format. All right, that completes the rare. So finally, moving on to Mythic and Bambi. So we've covered this in the other colors. If you're just catching green for the first time, I think this is incredibly weird that they're going to have this same card and rare format. It's the same card, same everything. The only thing is different is the art. Again, I am not a Magic historian. I don't know if they've done stuff like this in the past before, but changing the rarity based on the art, I think is a little weird. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. Like, sure, these are really cool. They're like a full art, and there's even a holographic version. But, like, come on. Like, does that make any sense? Like, the rarity should really be set about the power of the card and, like, how hard it is to find. Like, how many were printed. Like, that's the rarity of a card, not the art, and so I think that's overall a little weird. So let's go ahead and jump into the rest of the Mythic cards. First up, we have Hauntwood's Shrieker, 3 CMC, 1 colorless, 2 green. It's a creature beast mutant for 3/3. Whenever Hauntwood Shrieker attacks, manifest dread. So able to attack and create 2/2s, which is pretty nice. And then I can pay 1 colorless, 1 green, reveal target face down permanent. If it's a creature card, you may turn it face up. Holy crap. So that is a really good for Manifest Dread. So say you're putting big boys down and you have this card. Now I'm just paying 2 to flip the card rather than the 7 mana for a big boy. to flip it. So you're definitely going to see it in constructed manifest decks. If you have a good manifest deck going in limited and you run across this, I would snag it 100%. Next up is Tyvar the Pummeler. That's fun art. It's like an elf with a bat. So like an elf in modern day, just whacking zombies or something. So Tyvar the Pummeler is a 3 CMC, 1 colorless, 2 green, 3/3. So good value right off the bat. Hope so. It's a mythic card. Tap another untapped creature you control. Tyvar the Pummeler gains indestructible until end of turn. This is just free survival triggers. Free survival triggers. We love this. Like, people think it's a cost. Right now, we love it. It's survival triggers. We just tap something and then move into the second main and it gets its survival benefits. Like, yes, let's do it in a survival deck. And then we can pay 3 colorless and 2 green, and creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. There are literally cards that say if you are have survival, you get a 1/1 counter. So you just keep pumping 1/1 counters on this thing with this thing, and then all of a sudden now I can pay 5 CMC and give everything +X. Absolutely. Constructed, for sure, 100%. We're going to see this in a survival deck, like a green-white survival deck. I think we're going to see some cool stuff. And then if you're running a survival limited and you have this card, yeah, run it. Run it all day. Next up is Overlord of the Hauntwoods. 5 CMC, enchantment creature, avatar horror for 6/5. Good value. Already great value. And then it has Impending, which 4 with 1 colorless and 2 green. I think this is the first time we run into Impending in the green set. So let's talk about what Impending is. Impending is if you cast this spell for its impending cost, it enters with 4 time counters on it and isn't a creature until the last is removed. At the beginning of your end step, remove a time counter from it. So basically you play it, put some counters on it, remove them at your beginning of your end step, and then it moves from being an enchantment to a enchantment creature. And you get the effect below, though, when it first enters for the impending cost. And that is whenever Overlord of the Hauntwoods enters or attacks, create a tapped colorless land token named everywhere that is every basic land type. So we can go look at the everywhere token. And it's a token land. This land is a plains, island, swamp, forest, and mountain. And so you get that just by playing it. And then once it's either gone through its impending or you have paid the full price and started attacking with it, you get more and more and more of these. And it's just a token land. It doesn't go away. You don't sacrifice it to generate land. So I definitely think there's a place for this in constructed. But you would treat this in limited as a body. You're going to play this as a little bit of a mana curve. You're going to play it for its impending cost. And hope that it turns into a 6/5 that you can swing with. You might slam it down later for a 5 CMC 6/5, and they're going to have to deal with it. So there might be some things that we can do here. Now, I don't know if we have seen, or I can't recall if we have seen a mythic room before. We probably have, but here's a mythic room. I'm really excited about this one. This is on the border of the cost that we are accepting, which is this 3 CMC and Walk in the Closet. And then we got a bigger side, the Forgotten Cellar. So Walk in Closet is a 3 CMC, 2 colorless, 1 green. You may play lands from your graveyard. Great for milling decks. Play those lands from your graveyard. Great little skill set just to slam down on the table there. And then you have Forgotten Cellar, which is 5 CMC, 3 colorless, 2 green. When you unlock this door, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn, and if a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile it instead. So I'm excited about this because it's a mythic room. Are we going to see a lot of play from it? I don't think I would draft this in limited. Maybe if I'm just looking for, again, that range, 1 CMC to 3 CMC for an enchantment, for my enchantment count decks, then this might work. Are we going to see it in constructed? Maybe if something's built around it. That's about it. And then we could definitely see this in Commander. This would play well in Commander. So, without further ado, we have completed all of green. We covered commons, uncommons, rares, and mythics for the new Duskmourn set. This is my first set review. We have covered so far in order the white, the blue, the black, the red, and the green colors. We still have up to cover the multicolor, colorless, and we'll even do a special short episode about the new lands that are out there. So being my first, if this is your first, let me know in the comments. But did you enjoy kind of going through this, having some laughs, hopefully along the way, and some of my insight as somebody that is a student of this game and trying to qualify for the Pro Tour and going on this big, long journey, something I'm just kind of setting my goals and sights on. I needed to do a set review. I needed to read every card. I need to be prepared for draft going into Duskmourn. And I thought, what a better way to do that than to do a set review. So I really hope you enjoyed this. If you like this video, if you like Magic the Gathering content, you want to see me on my path to pro, you can catch me on all of the channels. You just go to my website, halfpump.com. You'll find my Twitch. You'll obviously find my YouTube if you're watching this video, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm just documenting my journey as I attend in-person tournaments, in-person drafts, doing my Bronze to Mythic runs on Arena, set reviews, and then any little news pieces and anything else I can think of for Magic the Gathering. I'm posting them all here on the YouTube channel. And as we close out everything, until next time, we'll catch you at the table.